This video is not about whether the 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan or the 1984 Star Michael Jordan is his true rookie card. Personally, I think that debate is completely fruitless. Whether you think one is or the other one is, there really is no denying that they both are very important cards in the history of sports cards. The 1986 Fleer may just be the most iconic card in the entire hobby, or at least one of only a few that could be considered for that category. And the 1984 Star card is the very first officially NBA licensed basketball card of Michael Jordan, making it also extremely important in the story of sports cards. In this video, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the history of Star basketball cards, with a particular emphasis on the Michael Jordan card, since it really is the card that makes this set so relevant and such an important part of sports card history. Let's get into this. In order to understand the story of Star basketball cards, it's important to first go back in time a little bit to the 1970s and early 1980s. I mean, really, we could keep going back in time even further than that, which I will do someday in a different video, as I think, for example, the 1948 Bowman basketball set is a fascinating piece of sports card history. But for now, let's just go back to the 70s. It was a time of social change in America. The Vietnam War finally came to an end. The presidency of Richard Nixon came to an abrupt end after the Watergate scandal. The video game Space Invaders was released. And in the realm of basketball cards, Topps was the production company making cards. Looking back to the 1970s now, a basketball fan can recognize all sorts of names of phenomenal players of the era. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dr. J, Julius Erving, Elvin Hayes, Pistol Pete Maravich, Walt Frazier, and many more. But at the time, the NBA was actually struggling financially from a lack of fan interest. Many teams were losing money every year. The average in-person attendance at NBA games was only 8,000, leaving arenas feeling empty and echoey. And while the NFL was taking full advantage of an increasing television audience, the NBA was waning far, far behind. Many commentators at the time considered this to be largely related to racism, as this was only a decade after the Civil Rights Movement and the end of state-sponsored racial segregation in the US. During the 1960s, racial attitudes and hatred had been showing in their full force, and many in the US pondered on whether a predominantly black league could succeed in a society where racism was still so alive and strong. Add to this that some of the most well-known athletes in the NBA were also strong advocates off the court for social justice and equality for black Americans, names like Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you had a recipe where a lot of frustrated racists wanted nothing to do with the NBA. And this was affecting the financial stability of the league and its popularity in US society. So against this backdrop, Topps, as the official license holder and producer of NBA cards, was having trouble finding its customer base. Due to a lack of popularity, after their 1981-82 card release, Topps decided to give up on basketball cards altogether and just focus itself on other sports like football and baseball. During the first season after Topps gave up their license, nobody took over the license. There were no basketball cards produced in 1982. But in 1983, along came Star Cards. Star had no history of producing sports cards, but the founder, Robert Levin, thought he saw an opportunity since no one held the NBA license for producing cards. So he jumped forward. Now, in retrospect, though his decision has important historical implications, from the business side of things at the time, this business venture was a flop. Star held the NBA license for 3 years, and during that time, they lost a lot more money than they made. There's plenty of reasons for this, but one of those reasons was the fact that Star had very little distribution network. Even Topps, with its long history in sports cards and its deep distribution network, couldn't make basketball cards profitable. So why exactly Robert Levin thought he could without a network is a little hard to imagine. Since Star didn't have a distribution network, or at least didn't have much of one, they instead decided to sell most of their cards in team sets at the arenas of different NBA teams. They did make some connections with some hobby shops and with some card shows, so you could find some of these packs, some of these team packs here and there as well, but they weren't widely distributed. And if you did happen to get your hands on a team set of Star cards, you probably were not that excited. You could buy them for a couple of bucks a piece, and they basically had no resale value at all. The first set that Star released was the 1983 All-Star Game set, which consisted of 32 cards and had a print run of approximately 15,000 per card. The highlight of this set today, though it still really isn't that highly sought, as it can be found raw for maybe, 25, 35 bucks or so, is the first ever NBA card of Isaiah Thomas. After this release, Star would then go on to produce standard base sets for the next 3 years, 83-84, 84-85, and 85-86. The 83-84 Star set, its first standard release, consisted of 275 cards in total, making it quite a large set. It had an estimated print run of about 5,000 per card, highlighted by the first-year cards of Clyde the Glide Drexler, Dominique the Human Highlight Film Wilkins, and Isaiah Thomas. The next year's release, the 84-85 Star card set, is the one that has the most historical importance, and of course that is all because of Michael Jordan. This set consisted of 288 cards, with an estimated print run of 3,000 per card. When most people think of this set, the card that people debate over whether it is Michael Jordan's true rookie card is card number 101 here. However, you may be surprised to know, or maybe not, that actually there are 3 Jordan cards in this set. Card number 175 is the Michael Jordan Olympic gold medalist card, and card number 288 is his Rookie of the Year card. But card number 101 is considered his main card, as it is the one that is just not kind of like a subset, it's from the base set. As well as the Jordan cards, the first licensed cards of a loaded rookie class could be found here. Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley, and John Stockton. We cannot forget the Blazers' number 2 pick in the draft, Sam Bowie, to name the biggest names. Now, we will get back to this Jordan card a bit later here, but before we do, let's not forget to briefly talk about the next year's 85-86 Star cards, which was the final year of Star cards as the official NBA license holder. This set consisted of 172 cards, making it the smallest of the Star base sets, and it had an estimated print run of somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 per card. The highlight here was the first licensed card of Patrick Ewing. And there isn't too much else notable here, as the rookie class besides Ewing just didn't have the name power the previous year had had. After the 85-86 year, Star lost its license and Fleer took over, and thus was born the most iconic basketball card of all time. But the story of Star basketball cards does not stop here. A couple of scandals must be sprinkled in here to get the full story. The first scandal was related to what is called Type 2 counterfeits. A Star print production employee stole a whole bunch of factory rejects of Star base cards from the 85-86 set, including a 10-card Michael Jordan subset. Due to this, and due to these actually being versions of the card that truly came from the original printer, it was extremely difficult to tell the difference between the real thing and the ones that were never meant to be released to the public. So if you ever do find any 85-86 Star Michael Jordan subset cards, expect that there is a very good chance they aren't authentic. Oh, but the Star scandals don't stop there. The next one's a bit wild. You remember the name Robert Levin, right? Well, he's the original founder of Star Cards I mentioned earlier. Well, in 1997, he claimed to have unearthed some previously unreleased Star cards that had been produced during the original print run. He explained that they had originally been made to be inserted into Crunch and Munch candy boxes, but they were never given to the candy company and had sat in storage for a decade. And then he went to work selling them on the Shop at Home network. However, it was later discovered that the story behind these Shop at Home network cards had been a concocted fabrication, and that these cards were actually newly printed cards that had been backdated to make them appear to be original. They were just straight up counterfeits, being sold directly to an unsuspecting public by the original founder of Star Cards. Due to all of this counterfeit shenanigans and hanky-panky, it became very difficult to figure out which Star cards were authentic and which were not. As such, shortly after this, several grading companies decided that they wouldn't be grading Star cards any longer, as it was just too difficult to tell what was real and what wasn't. However, in 2008, Beckett, BGS, decided to take on the task of trying to grade and authenticate Star cards, and for a long time, they were the only ones of the major grading companies to do so, until just very recently. In the summer of 2022, PSA announced that they would also begin grading and authenticating Star basketball cards, though they will only be doing cards from the 84-85 release. I'm not sure exactly why just that release. I suspect it's from a combination of several different factors, one being a money factor. I mean, essentially, it's really probably mostly just for the MJ card and maybe a few Barkley and Olajuwon cards as well. But I also think maybe perhaps due to the fact that the 83-84 release is full of all kind of printing defects and problems, and the 85-86 set is full of all sorts of Type 2 counterfeit issues, as I talked about earlier, I'm guessing they only really got themselves trying to get up to speed on the 84-85 and become experts in that area, since that's where MJ is, and 83-84 and 85-86 would present some additional challenges. So from what I understand, they only have a couple of people currently who are really expert enough to be able to grade the 84-85 set. They may eventually try to open up the door to those other 2 years of sets as well, or at least PSA has made it seem that the door for that idea isn't completely closed at this point. As far as I could find, the highest an 84-85 Star Michael Jordan card has ever sold was in a BGS 9 slab back in April 2020. 2021 when it sold at Goldin Auctions for $174,660. And that's the story of Star Basketball Cards. Peace.